This rather grisly, terrifying painting apparently depicts Ivan IV, also known as Ivan the Terrible of Russia. Ivan ruled during the 16th century, so the same time as the Tudors, and one of the famous things that he is known for is the fact that he may have had 8 wives, which would beat Henry VIII by 2. So when Ivan ruled, his nickname, the Terrible, actually meant that he was a strong king, inspiring terror into both his people and his enemies. But of course today, terrible is synonymous with evil doing. But as we listen to the story of all of his wives, maybe it's a worthy accolade. So strangely, although, with Henry VIII we know definitely that he had 6 wives, with Ivan the Terrible, it isn't known exactly how many wives. It's thought to be between 6 and 8. No matter what, it's a lot, but it's weird that we don't know the factual truth. His first wife, Anastasia, was selected by Ivan by a whole load of girls who were sent to court by their families as potential brides for the king, the Tsar. So similar to the fairy tale of Cinderella, an invitation was sent out to all noble families in Russia to send their eligible daughters to the royal palace so that Ivan could select his bride. And apparently between 500 and 1,500 girls turned up. But he chose Anastasia. He chose Anastasia and they were married in 1547. It seems as though this marriage was actually quite successful. She gave birth to a total of 6 children, and she was seen to have a sort of calming effect upon Ivan's somewhat volatile character. And Ivan absolutely adored his wife, or at least it is said that he loved her. Unfortunately, in 1560, after a long and lingering illness, Anastasia died aged about 30. Ivan was absolutely devastated, and although it's largely suspected that she did die from natural causes, he thought that she had been poisoned by some of his nobles, and so as a result he tortured and executed a large number of them without trial. However, recent forensic evidence would suggest that she might have died from mercury poisoning, which was actually included in a type of medicine widely used at the time. Ivan then set about looking for a second wife, and he was presented with Maria, the daughter of a Muslim prince, and he decided to marry her the following year in 1561. According to Russian folklore, his first wife Anastasia had warned Ivan not to marry a pagan, and she was obviously a Muslim, she was of a different religion, but Ivan was absolutely beguiled by her beauty. Ivan unfortunately came to regret his decision to marry her because she was just a totally different character to his first wife. She was more vocal, she was considered spiteful and vindictive and a bit nasty at the court, and she was also illiterate, so he found it more difficult to sort of communicate with her. And so only a few years later, she died at the age of just 25, and it was rumoured that Ivan had poisoned her to get her out the way. But there's no proof of that. Ivan instead decided to accuse lots of his nobles of poisoning his second wife, and he tortured and killed them accordingly. Ivan then began another extensive search for wife number 3, and he decided to marry Martha, and this is a reconstruction of what she might have looked like. She was aged 19 and she was married to him in 1571. However, only 16 days later, she too was dead. Again, rumours are swirling around about poison. There was one rumour that her mother gave her a fertility potion, which actually mistakenly ended up poisoning her because she was already rapidly losing weight before her marriage and then quickly died after. But there are also some other rumours that Ivan killed his wife, but they are unsubstantiated. But of course, Ivan was becoming incredibly paranoid by this point, and so he again launched an attack on his people, torturing and murdering those who he thought were the perpetrators. After the sudden death of his third wife, Ivan decided that he wanted to marry again, but this was actually prohibited by the Russian Orthodox Church. Nonetheless, he decided to marry without the church's consent, and he married a daughter of one of his courtiers, and she is called Anna. We don't actually know what she looked like, but this is an imagined painting of her. She was about 20, and they married in 1572. However, after only 2 years of marriage, it was said that Ivan had tired of his wife because she hadn't produced any children, and this was seen as a huge mark against her. He basically completely rejected her, and he sent his young wife to a monastery where she actually stayed for the rest of her life. She actually lived a very full life, not dying until her 70s, so maybe that was a lucky escape. Ivan then looked for wife number 5, and in 1575 he found one called Anna, and very little is known about her actually. She was married to Ivan in 1575, and again it was without the blessing of the church, and so later Ivan became tired of her and sent her off to a monastery, bearing in mind, remember, that if they're in a monastery they're basically imprisoned. It's believed that whilst in captivity, so only just after she'd arrived as a nun, she met a very violent death, and it's thought that this might have been on the orders of Ivan. And now this is where it becomes a little bit murky, because allegedly the next queen or the next wife of Ivan was Vasilisa. However, this is unconfirmed. Vasilisa was apparently a concubine at his court, and so initially he had an affair with her, but he later freed her, and it's thought that he married her, and that this took place between 1575 and 1580, and that allegedly they were together for 2 years. It's rumoured that she was the only queen that he loved after his first queen, Anastasia. However, the story goes that she was caught cheating on Ivan, and so as a result she again was sent to a monastery, or that she escaped Russia to, escape execution. Before this, however, Ivan apparently forced Vasilisa to watch her lover impaled and burnt alive within a coffin. So now Ivan was looking for wife number 7, and again this is an unconfirmed marriage. It is said or alleged that Ivan married his 7th wife, Maria, in about 1580. She was apparently of royal blood, and this is why he married her, but she also had a lover, apparently. This is Ivan telling her about her imminent death, and she was apparently executed by drowning. And then finally we have the 8th wife or the 6th wife, depending on what you believe. She was called Maria, she was aged about 29 at the time, and they were married in 1581. She gave birth to a son the following year, but apparently Ivan didn't like her, and there were rumours that he wanted to banish her or divorce her, but because she had that son, it was her saving grace. And anyway, Ivan died a few years later, and so she was one of only 2 of these women to actually survive Ivan the Terrible.